it ain't no disrespect to anybody because they're all great. And you're going to argue back and forth and everybody's going to have their opinion. But I'm saying, which rules are we using? Because when you say, if you say we're using today's rules, okay, well then take Michael Jordan, who's battered and bruised and getting fucked up every time he was running around off a screen through the paint, and put him in the rules today. Then what you
can't touch it. Averaging 45.
In fact, he repeatedly acknowledged LeBron's greatness, work ethic, durability, and impact on the game. But respect, according to Carter, does not mean avoiding uncomfortable truths, and that is where his argument begins to shake the foundation of how many fans talk about LeBron's era. Carter's main point revolves around context. When people say LeBron dominated for nearly 2 decades, Carter asks a simple question: dominated who? That question alone makes many fans uncomfortable because it shifts the discussion away from raw achievements and toward competition level. Carter explains that greatness cannot be judged in a vacuum. Rules matter, conference strength matters, team construction matters, and when you ignore those things, you end up creating what he calls a fake dominance narrative. Not fake in the sense that LeBron was not great, but fake in the sense that the difficulty of the road has been smoothed out in hindsight. One of the most important parts of Carter's argument is the difference between eras and rules.
And that's my argument. And it's no disrespect to any of these guys.
He was averaging 30 back then, though.
That's my point. Whatever you say, you're going to ruffle feathers, and that's cool. But I got the opportunity to play against Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, and LeBron James. So I've got to see all of them in their element.
Where do you put those three? You got a chance to play against all those three. And from your opinion, where do you put Mike, Kobe, and MJ?
I got to go with MJ.
So for the record, you got MJ, Kobe, and then LeBron?
Yeah.
Itself is more friendly to offensive stars. This leads directly into Carter's biggest claim. The Eastern Conference during LeBron's prime years was historically weak. Carter is careful with his words, but he does not back away from the point. He says that from around 2011 to 2018, the East lacked real depth in elite competition outside of LeBron's own teams. During this period, LeBron reached 8 straight NBA Finals. On paper, that looks untouchable, but Carter asks fans to look deeper. Who were the real threats during those playoff runs? In many seasons, the second-best team in the East would have struggled just to survive the first round in the Western Conference. Carter speaks from experience here. He played in both conferences. He lived through the grind. He knows the difference. When he says the West felt like a different sport, that statement carries weight. In the Western Conference, every playoff series felt like a war. There were no easy nights. Teams with superstar talent were getting eliminated early, not because they were bad, but because the competition was relentless. Meanwhile, in the East, once LeBron assembled a strong roster, the path to the finals became predictable. The suspense was not about who would win the conference, but how quickly it would happen. The Miami Heat years are a perfect example of what Carter is talking about. When LeBron joined D. Wade and Chris Bosh, he did not just join a good team, he formed a super team in a conference that had very little firepower to respond. Aging Celtics teams, young and inexperienced squads, and poorly constructed rosters stood in the way. Carter is not saying those teams were bad, he is saying they were not championship-level threats when compared to what was happening in the West at the same time. While LeBron was moving through the East, the West was stacked with elite teams. San Antonio was a machine built on discipline and execution. Oklahoma City had Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook at their peak. The Clippers were loaded with talent. Houston had James Harden. Golden State was rising and laying the foundation for a dynasty. Every round in the West felt like a finals-level battle. Carter emphasizes that this matters when discussing dominance. Surviving that kind of environment year after year is very different from controlling a weaker conference with a talent advantage. Another part of Carter's argument that resonates with many former players is the idea of super teams and balance.
That's kind of cool. I like that for you.
It was kind of cool.
We got the NBA.
VC, what's up, my dog? You all right?
Everything. Yeah, man.
Carolina soccer girls team. Shout out to them. Get another natty. Running them up.
Okay. Don't just say it like that. Just don't say it like that. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, wow, that's life-changing. I'll go home and write about it. Thank you.
It's about the Florida Gators that are in the country in men's basketball.
Not necessarily mean it was the hardest road. Carter also brings up playoff opponents and win totals to support his point. During LeBron's 8 straight finals runs, very few of his Eastern Conference opponents reached elite win totals. In contrast, Western Conference teams regularly faced 55-win teams just to advance to the next round. In some seasons, 55 wins in the West barely guaranteed a solid playoff position. That difference is not small. It changes how fatigue, injuries, and pressure accumulate over a postseason run. Travel and physical toll are another overlooked factor Carter highlights. Western Conference travel is brutal. Long flights, constant movement, and packed schedules take a physical and mental toll on players. The East, during LeBron's prime, was far more predictable. The standings were clearer. The margin for error was wider. LeBron is not saying he didn't work hard. He is saying the environment was less demanding overall. When Carter asks whether LeBron would have reached 8 straight finals if he had spent his prime in the West, he is not making a wild claim. He openly admits LeBron would still be great, but 8 straight finals? Carter doesn't believe that happens. And that's where fans really start to feel uncomfortable, because this question challenges one of the most celebrated achievements in modern NBA history. The reaction to Carter's comments says a lot. LeBron fans responded aggressively, calling him bitter, jealous, and irrelevant. But quietly, many former players and analysts agreed with him. They recognized the imbalance because they lived through it. Older fans who watched those Western Conference wars nodded along. Younger fans who grew up watching LeBron dominate the East often took the comments as personal attacks. This generational divide reveals how narratives are formed and protected over time. Carter makes it clear that he does not regret what he said. When asked if he wished he had worded things differently, his response was simple: why regret telling the truth? That answer shifts the conversation from debate to discomfort. Because once you accept the idea that context matters, you're forced to reevaluate how greatness is measured. This naturally leads to comparisons with Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant. Carter points out that both played in environments where every playoff run was dangerous. There were no smooth paths. Both conferences were loaded with Hall of Fame.
I want to get your take on LeBron because you've played against him since he was a young pup. What's the biggest difference of him then and now in terms of how he just keeps getting better?
Dedication. He has goals in mind, what he wants to accomplish, and it's clear that he wants to be the greatest. You know, when he's saying, I want to play so many years, like I'm saying, I want to play as long as I can. He wants to be the greatest. Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, those are people that we throw around. He wants to be there. So I think now he's striving for that. And he's asserting himself more offensively, which I think he's needed.
He missed the playoffs his first season. The next season brought a championship in the bubble, which remains a topic of debate among fans. Carter does not dismiss that title, but he notes that the road was different. The margin for error was smaller. The competition was tougher. The West did not offer the same predictable path that LeBron enjoyed in the East. Carter's argument does not erase LeBron's greatness. In fact, he repeatedly emphasizes that LeBron is one of the greatest players ever. His longevity is unmatched. His basketball IQ is elite. His ability to adapt across eras is rare. But greatness and dominance are not the same thing when context is ignored. Carter is asking fans to be honest about the environment in which that dominance occurred. The phrase fake dominance hits hard because it challenges a protected narrative. It suggests that while LeBron's achievements are real, the way they are presented often ignores key advantages. When questioning a narrative causes this much backlash, it reveals how powerful that narrative has become. Carter opened a door many fans wanted to keep closed. 20 years from now, Carter believes people will look at the numbers without understanding the full story. They will see 10 finals appearances and assume LeBron faced the same resistance as Jordan or Kobe. Carter argues that assumption would be wrong. The Eastern Conference struggled. The Western Conference was brutal. That imbalance shaped careers, legacies, and outcomes. The real question Carter leaves us with is simple but uncomfortable. Does dominance mean the same thing when competition is historically weak, or do results count no matter how smooth the road was? That question is why this debate refuses to die. It is not about hate, it is about honesty. LeBron James remains an all-time great. That is not up for debate. But if the GOAT conversation is going to be taken seriously, then every part of the story has to be considered, including the parts that make his resume look less untouchable. Carter did not tear LeBron down. He forced the basketball world to look closer, and that is why his words matter. This conversation is not ending anytime soon. If anything, it is just getting louder. Fans can argue, defend, and attack all they want, but context does not disappear just because it makes people uncomfortable. Vince Carter said what many were afraid to say out loud, and whether people agree with him or not, he changed the way the conversation is framed. Dominance without context is incomplete, and once you see that, you cannot unsee it. The discussion that Vince Carter sparked keeps growing because it touches something deeper than stats or rings. It challenges how fans emotionally attach themselves to players and eras. For many people, LeBron James represents consistency, success, and pride. Questioning any part of that feels personal. Carter understood that reaction before he even spoke, which is why he repeatedly said this was not about hate, it was about accuracy. And accuracy is often uncomfortable when it disrupts a long-standing story. One reason this debate refuses to cool down is because basketball conversations today are driven by highlights and headlines. Social media rewards quick takes, not deep context. 8 straight finals appearances looks legendary in a tweet. It looks unbeatable on a graphic. But Carter is asking fans to pause and think about the road behind those numbers. He is asking people to separate achievement from difficulty. That distinction matters when comparing greatness across eras. Carter also touched on how narratives are shaped by media coverage. During LeBron's run in the East, the media often framed his playoff path as heroic dominance rather than expected success. Every finals appearance was treated as proof of unmatched greatness, even when the competition was clearly uneven. Carter argues that expectations reveal the truth. When everyone expects one player to reach the finals every year, that tells you something about the environment. True dominance usually comes with uncertainty. With LeBron in the East, uncertainty disappeared. Another layer to Carter's argument is how fear works in sports. In the West, teams feared each other. Matchups mattered, seeding mattered, injuries mattered. A small mistake could end a season. In the East, during LeBron's prime, teams feared LeBron. That fear alone shaped playoff series before they even started. Carter is not blaming LeBron for that. He is saying the psychological balance was broken. When one player and his team are so far ahead of the field, dominance becomes inevitable rather than earned through constant resistance. Carter also points out how the idea of era dominance often ignores how talent was distributed. The league did not lack talent during LeBron's prime, it was unevenly concentrated. The West had an overload of stars and elite systems, the East had fewer complete teams. That imbalance allowed LeBron's teams to conserve energy, experiment, and adjust without serious consequences. In the West, experimentation often led to elimination. This matters when comparing LeBron to players like Jordan and Kobe. Those players did not have the luxury of pacing themselves through the early rounds. Every series demanded full intensity. Every game carried risk. Carter believes that kind of pressure shapes legacies differently. It sharpens competitiveness. It exposes weaknesses. It leaves less room for error. That is why Carter believes finals appearances alone cannot be used as the main measuring stick. Carter also acknowledges that LeBron's supporters are not wrong to praise his longevity. Playing at a high level for 2 decades is rare. Staying healthy, adapting to rule changes, and remaining relevant across generations is incredible. But longevity does not automatically equal dominance. Carter separates durability from difficulty. One shows how long you played, the other shows what you had to overcome. As the conversation continued across media platforms, another interesting pattern emerged. Many current players avoided speaking directly on the topic, but their reactions said enough. Some hinted agreement, others stayed silent. That silence is telling. In today's NBA, criticizing LeBron openly comes with consequences. Carter, as a retired legend, had the freedom to speak honestly. That freedom gave his words extra weight. Carter also addressed the emotional side of fandom. He understands why fans defend LeBron so fiercely. Sports heroes become part of identity. Challenging them feels like disrespect. But Carter reminds people that basketball history is meant to be honest. It is not meant to be comfortable. Every great player benefited from circumstances. Jordan had his era, Kobe had his conference battles, LeBron had his imbalance. Acknowledging that doesn't erase greatness, it completes the picture. Another important point Carter makes is how future generations will interpret history. Numbers alone never tell the full story. Without context, stats become misleading. Carter worries that future fans will see LeBron's final streak and assume equal competition. That assumption shapes debates unfairly. History deserves accuracy, not simplification. Carter's comments also reopened discussion about league structure. Conference imbalance is not a new issue, but LeBron's era made it impossible to ignore. For years, fans watched the West eliminate championship-level teams early, while the East sent weaker teams deeper into the playoffs. Carter believes this imbalance should be part of any serious legacy conversation, not an afterthought. As the debate continues, one thing becomes clear. Carter did not weaken LeBron's legacy, he complicated it. And complication is not a bad thing. It forces fans to think. It forces comparisons to become deeper. It forces conversations to move beyond surface-level praise. The reason the phrase fake dominance upsets so many people is because it challenges comfort. It suggests that what looked unbeatable may have been aided by circumstance. That does not mean LeBron did not dominate. It means the dominance was supported by an environment that favored him. That distinction matters when ranking greatness. Carter's perspective also highlights the value of lived experience. He did not study this from spreadsheets, he lived it. He felt the difference between conferences. He faced the grind. That experience gives his words credibility that online debates often lack. As time passes, this conversation will likely evolve rather than disappear. New players will rise, new eras will form, but LeBron's legacy will always be discussed. And thanks to Carter, that discussion will now include context more often than before. In the end, Carter leaves fans with a responsibility to be honest, to separate admiration from analysis, to appreciate greatness without turning it into myth. Basketball history deserves that level of respect. LeBron James will always be one of the greatest players to ever play the game. That truth remains unchanged. What Carter asks is simple. When we talk about dominance, let us talk about the road, not just the destination. Let us talk about who stood in the way, not just who crossed the finish line. Because without that, the story is incomplete. And that is why Vince Carter's words continue to echo. Not because they tear anyone down, but because they force the basketball world to look at itself honestly. Context does not diminish greatness, it defines it.